Welcome to Truth Telling with Elizabeth D'Alto, the podcast dedicated to focusing on the truth that is always evolving within us and around us, where we explore the potentiality of truth as a highly esteemed value at a time in history when most people have more on their plates than any one human should. If you're new to me, full expression is my jam. Some words people have used to describe me range from speaker, trainer, coach, healer, writer, spiritual advisor, teacher, podcaster, and someone even called me their soul Sherpa once. I'm less concerned with titles or labels and more interested in results, change, and creating a world we want to, can, and are proud to live in. A kinder, gentler, more curious, collaborative, reverent world where people respect each other's backgrounds, experiences, and truths. They trust in themselves, in life, and recognize that we need each other. And they know how to cultivate healthy relationships to true power, not the very unhealthy kind of power our current culture is predicated upon. Speaking of our culture, there's a lot of noise and ignorance in our current culture, and this show aims to cut through that by exploring the truths of a diverse range of incredible voices. From authors, artists, creatives, and educators to activists, speakers, and those in various scientific and esoteric fields, our guests hail from cultures and countries all over the world. We post a new interview every Monday, and if you want to keep up with the show notes and quotes from our guests, you can follow me on Instagram at Elizabeth D'Alto. You can expect a wide range of topics when you tune into this show. Everything from health, communication, money, success, parenting, desire, sex, love, and spirituality, to making pivots and transitions in life, and topics related to psychology, storytelling, gender and race issues, emotional intelligence, activism, advocacy, and much more. A few disclaimers. No episode of the show is meant for everyone, and every episode is meant for whoever needs it on the right day at the right time. Not all guest views will reflect my own, and that's intentional. We don't learn, grow, heal, or improve by staying in our comfortable bubbles with all of our people who look, think, or live exactly how we do. If you love what you hear and find it useful and inspiring, the best way to show your appreciation is to share the episode, subscribe to the show, and leave us a rating and review wherever you listen in from. Thank you so much for being here with me. Here we go. What's up, everyone? This is episode number 270 of Truth Telling with Elizabeth D'Alto, and this is a really fun and informative conversation today. It's a 101 type episode, which I love to do once in a while to create a go-to resource for people looking to get into things. So today's topic is the tarot, and my guest is Brigit Esselmont, founder of Biddy Tarot. Brigit's big truth was around discovering more about the role intuition and inner wisdom play in her life. From there, we talked about how and why she got into tarot 20 plus years ago, and the basics of how she teaches people to use the tarot as an access point to living a more intuitive life. She explained the difference between tarot and oracle cards, walked us through the Major Arcana, and even gave me a mini reading around my pursuit of stand-up comedy to demonstrate how the cards work. So again, this one was fun. It's specific. You might be interested in this, you might not. If you know anyone who is, definitely go ahead and share it. Brigit's Everyday Tarot book has just recently come out as well, so check that out if you're interested in learning more and going a little bit deeper. And as well, I obviously always want to remind you that we have some bonus podcast episodes going on over at the Patreon, which is patreon.com/Elizabeth Untamed. Patreon is spelled Patreon. And it's just an amazing, fun platform over there for the community to connect in a deeper way with each other, with me, to discuss these weekly podcast episodes in our community forum, as well as the bonus episodes, which are very similar to when I used to do Sunday sermons on the show. So if you missed the Sunday sermons, if you're looking for deeper dives into things that are a bit more personal, a bit more spiritual, a bit more life, love, and intimacy oriented, as well as to learning more specifically how I use the tools that I teach and I talk about in my programs all the time and in my workshops in my own life, especially as I take on the new project of pursuing stand-up comedy. that's really what we're doing over there at the Patreon, as well as twice a month I share Wild Soul Movement practice videos. So if you're a fan of Wild Soul Movement, or if you've been interested in trying it out, the Patreon is a very easy and a very lovely and fun way to access those things, as well as very inexpensive. So again, that is patreon.com/Elizabeth Untamed. And let's get into today's episode. Brigit, welcome. I'm excited to dive into something I really have never done before today with you.
Awesome. I cannot wait. And I tell you what, I love working with people who are new and fresh to tarot because it's fresh eyes and we can do some really fun stuff together. It'll be good.
Yeah. So those of you listening, I was telling Brigit before we started recording that I love to have kind of like these 101 type episodes for lack of a better term, tools of divination or things that help you get to know yourself better. So we had our astrology episode with Jen Rastiopi. We had our human design episode with Chetan Parkin. So today, Brigit's really here to walk us through tarot, not necessarily how to read tarot, but how to integrate it into your life. And those of you who listen regularly know how much I geek out on archetype and things like that. And the whole system is built around archetype, isn't it?
Yeah, particularly the Major Arcana cards, so we can get into that soon.
Amazing. Okay, so even so, I still want to ask you the question we always ask everyone, which is, what is a truth that's having a big impact on your life right now?
Yeah, it's funny. I was hoping you might ask this near the end because all these different things came into mind about what is my truth right now. And I thought I'll just see what happens intuitively. But I actually think that is the truth in the sense that I am discovering more and more about the role that my intuition, my inner wisdom plays and how that empowers me as a person in this current environment. And what I mean by that is that the more I trust my intuition, the more that I see it as a really valid and important tool, the more that I bring my power inwards. And I know that all of that power can manifest what it is that I want in my life, rather than sort of waiting for other things to happen. I know it's all in here and I can make things happen myself.
Yeah, I like that. And I was just reading something earlier today about even the term empower. A lot of people use it to say, I'm going to empower you to ... But my perception of empower has always been, I'm going to give people the tools to empower themselves, because I think we really only can. Because that implies that there's a source of power outside of ourselves, and I don't believe in that.
Yeah, it's not for me either. I just and I think also like we need to be in this place where it's like it's a superpower. The fact that we can connect with our intuition, we can connect with our inner guidance system. That is something to be so proud of and to really stand true and to stand firm with that, because I think for so long, and I know on my own journey, I've allowed it to be like, oh, I read tarot. Oh, but I used to work in corporate. Do you know what I mean? Like, yeah. I would keep kind of counteracting it with like trying to say, oh, well, I'm normal in kind of the more traditional system. But what I realized was by doing that, I was actually taking away from my own personal power. And now when I stand up and say, I am totally in connection with my intuition, like that is something I just stand so true and so firm with. Yeah. So I think that's really important.
And in a culture like we have, globally, I know you're in Australia, but I know there's a lot of similarities to here around these types of things and embracing spirituality or quote woo-woo, if that's what you want to call it. It actually takes a lot of courage and it takes a lot of work when the majority of society is not into these types of things or just doesn't hold it in a high respect or treats it like a game or something, doesn't take it seriously. It takes a strength and a confidence and a self-assuredness to go, yeah, this is my jam. This is my stuff.
And we have this opportunity now to be leaders as intuitive, strong women. We can now lead the way and really act as role models for like, this is what it looks like to live an intuitive life. I don't have to wear crushed velvet and, have a crystal ball to be intuitive. I can be a regular person living an awesome life and something that I feel very, very proud of creating. So yeah, huge opportunity there to like really lead the way and show others, kind of like light up the path for others to also step out, courageously.
And what I appreciate so much about connecting to intuition, regardless of the tool that anyone uses to do it, is that no matter what someone's status in life is, we have a lot of conversations on the podcast about privilege and systems of oppression and dismantling these really old, outdated ways. But connecting with intuition is something that can serve anyone.
Yeah, in any environment too.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what's going on around you. It's what's happening within you. That's the important piece.
It's like literally one thing the system can't take from you. So, okay, let's start with, I'd love to know, so you worked in corporate. How did you get into tarot?
Yeah, neat. So as a teenager, I was really interested in spirituality and even different types of religion. So I read the Bible from start to finish when I was a teenager. And I explored, Wicca, witchcraft, all sorts of things. So when it came to me having my first tarot reading, I was 17. I was about to head over to Germany on a school exchange. And I was like, okay, what's going to happen? So I get this tarot reading. She draws the Emperor card. And she's like, oh, the Emperor, you're going to meet this guy over there and you're going to fall madly in love. And I was like, oh, okay, right, whatever. You probably just tell everybody that. But I get over there and, I meet my first boyfriend there. And I thought, okay, there's really something in this. So I started to learn how to read tarot myself from about 18 onwards. And as I got deeper into tarot, what I started to discover was I'm just astounded. It is like the book of life. It's like these 78 pages, which are the 78 cards that represent all of the full spectrum of our life. And it integrates so many elements of spirituality. It's got a lot of Christian symbolism in there, Jewish symbolism, Buddhist. Like there's actually this beautiful meshing of different, spiritual beliefs in these 78 cards. And it's when we start to tap into these cards and also use them intuitively, that's when we open up like some amazing things within ourselves and get really in touch with our inner guidance system.
Cool. So you started pretty young. So at what point or what was the impetus that made you leave corporate and go, I'm going to build a whole business around reading tarot?
It's a big jump. So, I was 18. I was studying at university. I was doing a commerce degree. And to help me get through those boring, dry accounting classes, I was reading tarot on the side. And I actually started Biddy Tarot in 1999. It was online as a website. I hand-coded it with
oh, my God. I can't imagine what that website looked like in 1999.
It's like, it's embarrassing. It was, I'm actually just really proud. I just got it up and I got it running. My intention at that time was, I'm learning all this cool stuff. I just want to put it on the internet and share it with other people. So that's really how it was born. And look, for a good 10 years, tarot was just a side hobby for me. It was a way of like releasing creativity plus a way for me to connect in with my spirituality. But by the time I had my first baby, 2009, I started to get this feeling like I just don't think I'm into the corporate world. I loved building my career. Like it was so in alignment when I was in there. And then I got to a point I was like, no, I'm done with saying like yes to people and being told what to do and being part of all these, downsizing reorganizations and money and blah, blah, blah. And I thought there's got to be something else. And that's when I started to put some attention into turning Biddy Tarot into more of a business. So creating an ebook and selling that, getting better with like search engine optimization and so on. And then within a couple of years, by 2012, I'd built my business to a point where I was getting the same income on Biddy Tarot that I was in my corporate job. And I thought, right, this is it, scared as ever, but this is it. I'm going to leave corporate and I'm going to pursue Biddy Tarot full time. And, what are we now, like 6 years out from that, and built the company into a 7-figure company. We have a team of 18. We have nearly 5 million visitors to our website every year. And we've got students, I think we've served over 3,000 students just in our tarot courses alone. So wow. I could never have imagined what has been possible, but it's crazy pants.
Yeah, that is. And But you know what's so interesting to me? Whenever I talk to people who do something like you do, where it's like it's spiritual in nature, it's like tarot. I have a friend who does numerology. I have a number of friends who are astrologers, and I'm like, it's just proof how deeply people want to know themselves, how deeply people want to understand life, how it works, and what's unfolding. But then also I feel like the shadow of that is how desperate people are to know something about the future.
Yes.
Or like control, or be able to like get some affirmation before they make decisions. So I'm curious if you find that, like, what are like the primary drivers, like when people come to Biddy Tarot?
Yeah, so I think when people think of tarot, who haven't necessarily had much experience with tarot, there's often this perception that it's a fortune-telling tool.
Yeah.
That's how it's portrayed in the media. You know, you have this like gypsy-looking woman with a headscarf on. She pulls out the death card and she tells you you're going to die, right? So that's what people think tarot is about. Thankfully, it's not. I mean, it may be in a small fraction of cases, but generally it's not. So I think when people are introduced to tarot, they see it as it's this thing that's going to tell me what's going to happen.
Right.
Now, the thing that happens when you're seeing it in that way is you're actually projecting not into your own inner source of power. You're projecting onto something outside of you.
Right.
And I actually think that that's why I say in Christian belief that tarot cards are often considered evil. And I believe it's because they can, in some ways, they can be a negative influence if you are projecting onto this external thing to control and dictate your life. So when you're in that kind of relationship with tarot, I don't think it's a really healthy one. Mm-hmm. However, where the magic happens, and this is what I teach all of my students, is when we actually use the cards kind of like a mirror to our soul. It's this visual element that helps us connect our conscious mind to our subconscious and rediscover all of those answers that are already inside of us. So again, now the powers move from the external of like this card's going to tell me what to do to it's just reflecting back to me what I already know and feel about a situation, mm-hmm. and all of that power comes back inside. And that's the magic of tarot in my mind.
And so for people, like I made an Oracle deck a couple years ago, but Oracle deck is different because it doesn't go by, it's, you know, it was 44 cards, and I know there's specific suits in the 78 that you mentioned earlier. What are the differences between tarot and Oracle cards?
Yeah, I kind of see tarot as kind of like the strict school teacher in a way, as in there's sort of certain rules for it to be a tarot deck. Usually it's 78 cards. Sometimes it might be 79 or 80, depending how creative the creator is. There's usually 4 suits in the tarot deck. There's a Major Arcana. You've got court cards and so on. And each card, even though like in different decks it'll be expressed differently visually, mm-hmm. there's always a core message or a core energy associated with each card. So for example, like the 4 of Swords, very much about like rest, relaxation, and going within, but that might just look different across different decks. Now with an Oracle deck though, any number of cards, it's like the Wild West, any number of cards, you choose if it's about angels, crystals, mm-hmm. You know, positive affirmations, and typically I find Oracle decks are probably more biased towards positive, uplifting messages. Yeah. Whereas Tarot's more full spectrum in my mind.
Yeah. I had, actually, as I'm talking to you, I'm remembering that my first Oracle deck I ever had was actually a tarot deck, only I interacted with it as an Oracle deck. It was called Mythical Goddess Tarot. And instead of having like swords, cups, wands, and pentacles, cups, it was earth, wind, fire, sea.
Oh, nice.
Earth, air, fire, sea. So really goddessy, really like earth oriented. And there were some negative cards, and I would use them in my Wild Soul classes sometimes. And, you know, people would like kind of freak out when they got the dark one. And I'm like, no, this is good.
Yes. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah,
because I
please.
think it's something that often people fear about tarot. They're like, oh, I don't want to have a tarot reading because what if it tells me something bad? Or what if I get like the death card or the devil and so on, right? So yes, there are these cards in tarot that kind of have scary names, devil and death. There's the 10 of swords where a guy's like laying face down on the ground. He's got swords stuck in his back. There's blood everywhere. It kind of looks a bit drastic. But the thing is, and, you know, you and I both know, like, life is not full of roses and unicorns and rainbows, right? And in fact, it's when we get into the shadows that we actually start to grow and evolve as people. And so my feeling is every card in the tarot deck, whether it's seen as, you know, really positive or even really negative, they all have light and shade. So even the sun card, which is about like warmth, positivity, growth, it has a shadow side to it in that, you know, if you've ever been around someone that's just positive all the time, it can get like, too much, right?
Yeah.
Or sometimes those folks who might be positive all the time, maybe there's some other stuff going on underneath that they haven't necessarily brought into their conscious awareness. So there can be this light and shade, even like with the devil card, which talks about unhealthy attachments and codependency. It can also speak to those times when you are creating attachments with people, and sometimes there can be like healthy attachments. I think of just recently, my daughter had to go into hospital for a couple of nights, and, you know, being 8 years old, she needed her mum there like I needed to be there the whole time. And we created this beautiful bond over that weekend. And to me, that was a devil moment and I don't mean that in a bad way. It was actually a really beautiful bond that we created. So there's light and shade in all the cards. And I think it's this willingness to explore both the light elements and the shadow elements that are in our lives.
I think that's invaluable no matter what is the context. So, okay, we got when you started, how you started. I want to ask you a selfish question.
Yeah.
And I'm curious now because I literally, at the time of recording this will be coming out in like a month from when we're recording it. By the time I'm recording it, I'm like a week in my new place. But my last place where I lived, the name of the street was Rey de Copas, which was King of Cups.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I remember looking it up when I was first moving in and being like, I wonder what. And I forget everything it meant when I looked it up, but I'm curious now. So this is 1,000% selfish question.
Yeah, no, neat. I'm going to see if I can find it in my deck because I want to show you. I like to give you a sense of the visual because you will also read into the card.
Yeah. So some people are listening, but if you want to go check the video, It'll be on YouTube if you want to see it.
And this always happens. So whenever I want to find the card in my deck, it's usually the last card.
Yeah, totally. I remember. I'll ramble for a second while you look for it. I literally remember being like, "Oh man, I wonder what that means." I remember something about like emotional, like balance or maturity or something like that. And, but for sure, growing up a bit happened there. So, did you find it?
Yes, I did. So in the tarot, we have things called court cards, and that's like page, knight, queen, and cups. And then there's court cards for each of the suits, the 4 suits. So with the kings, it's often this kind of it's a place of like the most developed, the most mature of the court cards. And a king energy is more sort of outward, more in control, on top of things. So when we come to like the King of Cups, where cups is more about like relationships, emotions, and feelings, King of Cups really speaks to being in that beautiful place of really knowing and understanding your emotions and your feelings. And if you bring in the king energy, think of it as sort of more of an evolved masculine energy around emotions. So to me, this is like kind of like the evolved man in a way who is fully in touch with his emotions, doesn't necessarily allow them to be, like overwhelming all of the time, but can keep a nice containment whilst remaining true and authentic to them. So this is the king. And actually I've pulled out, I love the queen. She's a mermaid in our deck.
Yeah.
And in fact, if you pop them that way, it's kind of nice.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the King of Cups, just knowing a little bit about you, Elizabeth, I think it's just a beautiful card for balancing out emotion and feeling and using it to your advantage in a way that serves you constructively and powerfully. Does that
Yeah.
resonate?
I mean, 1,000%, because part of when I moved there, it was about, I was still healing from a traumatic relationship. And very much a lot of the healing that I was doing was coming out of codependency, emotional abuse. And, you know, for the first 7 months that I lived there, I was intentionally not dating, but then I started. And as I started, it was cool to see, okay, I've done all this work in a vacuum, in isolation, but now that I'm interacting with people again, what's coming up? And over the last several months, I've had some interactions with men that have like really pushed my buttons, but because I had done the work that I did, I was able to like clean it up fast. I was able to almost be in like, kind of like, as you're saying, like this evolved masculine, because we talk about it a lot on the show as well, of integrating masculine and feminine. I know some people don't like that terminology, but essentially, you know, there are a lot of archetypal aspects to the energies, and it felt like using that, just like a deeper integration of the masculine in terms of like equanimity, right? Like, how can I be imperturbable? How can, you know, things be happening and I'm not losing my shit? I can have hurt feelings, but I don't have to lash out. I don't have to be manipulative. I don't need to try to control a thing. I am more able, like when that kind of like that solid masculine is there, I'm more able to kind of flow with stuff. And it just helps me surrender, which a couple months ago, it was just like a very clear part of my life went, we're going to need you to surrender here in a way you never have before. And that's been absolutely like life and trajectory shifting. So totally resonates. Very cool.
Yeah. Neat.
Okay. So what, in terms, I know you have a new book as well. Like when your interview goes live, I think your book will, I don't know if it'll still be on pre-order or if it'll be out. I think this is going up around the 4th or the 3rd.
All right, perfect. So it launches on September 18th. So either way,
they'll get a little
it will
heads
be
up.
available. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what did you go over in the book? Because it's not like Tarot 101. That's like what you teach on your site, like how to read tarot and everything like that. So people want to check that out, they can go look at your courses. But what's with the book?
Yeah, so when the idea of writing a book came into my mind, I thought, I really want to do something that's different. I want to do something that is in integrity with the way that I connect with tarot and the way that I'm in relationship with tarot. And I knew that meant like I'm not going to be writing another book on how to read tarot. There's so many out there. In fact, I'd say pretty much every single book. I was looking through a few and I'm like, every book has like, here's how to do a Celtic cross. Here's what the cards mean. I'm like, no, that's not it. So I wanted to create this book that reflected the way in which I connect with tarot, which is on an everyday basis. So I don't necessarily sit down. I don't go and choose a reading that I want to do and then go and do the reading and then, you know, it's done. Tarot is just a part of my life. Like and tarot and intuition are parts of my life. So Everyday Tarot, the book that I wrote, is this really practical hands-on guide for how you can use tarot in multiple different situations. So for example, Tarot for Self-Discovery is one of the chapters. And inside of that, I'm talking about how you can use it to really tap into what your soul purpose is. And look, you know, is it going to tell you exactly what you should do with the rest of your life? No, that will come from within. But the using the tarot cards in alignment with your own personal visioning process will help you go into like that much deeper in the layers. So instead of it being like a thought process, a conscious thing, you're using the cards to support the process of understanding your soul purpose by going deeper into your subconscious.
Yeah.
So there's some really neat things around, you know, a soul purpose spread, but also a process of how you get deeper with that.
Yeah.
And then even things like a soul alignment check-in. I'm doing this quite regularly where, you know, I might be considering a new project inside of Biddy Tarot and my brain's going, yes, this is great. You know, it's like it's going to make us look really good or it's going to make lots of money. But then I think, okay, stop. I need to check in. Is this in alignment with why I'm here on this earth? And I will use my cards to help give me that check-in as well. So the book's really reflective of that kind of style of working with tarot. There's other things like, you know, using tarot for career and work. It's funny with that chapter, I had to write it twice. The first time I thought, okay, even though I'm an entrepreneur, I love my freedom. I've got to write this for the majority of people who are probably in a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So I started writing it and going, oh, okay, here's how to get a pay rise. Here's how to please your boss. And I wrote it and my editor's like, Brigit, this is not you. Like, no, everything else awesome. This chapter, no, you need to rewrite it. And I was like, oh man, where can I find this place where it does feel authentic and true to me, but can also be relatable for others?
Yeah.
So I really shifted the focus of that chapter then to finding a place where you can feel, again, in alignment with your career and your work, even if you are working 9 to 5, even if you do have a boss. Like, how can you find a workable way of honoring your own journey in the context of work? So
I want to interrupt you there for a moment because I love that. That's actually something I've been looking at this year. And I have a couple of friends who have gone back into more traditional jobs, not necessarily 9 to 5, but, someone who was doing healing work that decided to go back into the nursing field. And I think we really need more people who have done this deep personal work and have the awareness and the open heart and the compassion and the love that they've been really cultivating to be in the quote mainstream places. Even just yesterday, actually, I was do you guys have Costco in Australia or those? You do. So you know what it is. The woman behind the counter at Costco was a straight up earth angel. She just was. And that made that whole experience, which didn't have to be, just a magical. I mean, I did a freaking Instagram story about her, and people were writing into me this woman was amazing. I love this story. Thank you so much for sharing. This made my day. And so the woman behind the freaking membership counter at Costco had a ripple effect that she doesn't even know she had.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And I think, I don't know, I have to admit I'm probably biased and I keep thinking, oh, everyone should become entrepreneurs and take back control of their life and so on. But I'm really glad you mentioned that because I think there is a more fluidity in terms of it's not a backward step to go into a regular day job.
No.
It's actually a forward movement. And just I don't know who shared it. Maybe it was Rebecca Campbell, who's, sort of a self-help spirituality author. She talked about the idea that many of us go through corporate in our 20s and then move into a more spiritual healing kind of space, usually by our 30s or our 40s. And the reason for doing that is we get all the skills that we need from corporate so that we can take our spirituality and put it out there in a really big way. I believe that to be very true for me. And perhaps likewise, now we're in this healing space. Maybe for some of us, it's about taking what we're learning in healing and now reapplying it to kind of the regular world again.
Yeah, I'm so glad you made that point and especially emphasize that it's not a backward step, because one of the things that I don't love about the self-help industry, especially skewed towards entrepreneurship, is this superiority about entrepreneurship being better, because what I have found over the years is that just not everyone's built for it. Not everyone is built to hold the level of risk and uncertainty that it really takes to be an entrepreneur. And Jonathan Fields, we'll put a link to this in the show notes. We talked about this during his episode, which I think was about 2 years ago now at this point. And, he said it's plenty of people can do their soul's work as a side hustle or even as just a hobby. Because for some, once becomes the thing that pays the bills, that makes it an entirely different ballgame. So let me ask you that real quick, and then I want to come back specifically into tarot and especially the exploration of the archetypes. But did you find that at all in your journey once you decided to make it? It sounds like yours was kind of gradual, though, so maybe not. But once it was the full-time gig and all the pressure was on it, did that change your relationship to it about it at all, or no?
Well, I have a foot in two camps. I love spirituality and I love business. So the idea of building and growing a company like what I've created already, that is exciting to me alone. So for me, this is a perfect blend of my purpose and so on. That said, I have had moments where I'm very process driven. I really say batching a lot of our content. And recently I've got to a place where I'm I feel obligated to, sorry, it's school time.
Listen, it happens. We get moms on the show. We deal. Sometimes kids run in the room. We just say hi, keep going.
Yeah. Awesome. But yeah, I've found myself kind of feeling like my creativity is getting stifled at times because we've gone a bit too far in our processes to make things efficient.
Yep.
So I'm just very aware of that. But overall, like I bleed business and spirituality, so it works for me.
Yeah, and I appreciate that point too, to say, you know, we all want to be efficient and productive. I feel like productivity gets hailed as like, you know, I have like 3 different productivity journals sitting like somewhere in the proximity of this desk, and I have never finished using any of them because intuition always takes over, right?
Yeah.
Like there's, depending on what you embody and what you practice, like it works to a point, but then like that soul comes through and is like, we're going to need you to do this instead.
But do you know what I love? This is what I love about the kind of work that we do is, well, if I was back in my corporate job and my like soul and spirit's going, no, we need to take it a different direction, as if. But I can have meetings like with my team and go, you know what, I'm really feeling into this and it's not feeling right. Or like we're pulling tarot cards about what goals we should set for our next launch. You know, we have so much space now to allow this part of ourselves to come through. And that, you know, when I was talking about that at the start of today's call about really trusting and validating our intuition, that's what this is about, and making it an integrated part of our lives and our businesses. I think that's really exciting.
Yeah. And, you know, some people listening, some people are entrepreneurs, some people are not, but like there's always inspiration in whatever context for people to apply what we're talking about. So, okay, let's come back. What I do want to know about tarot in general is like the core archetypes. So the suits, and you were saying the major arcana.
Yeah, let's focus on the majors. So there are 22 major arcana cards in the tarot deck. And typically you find like the majors visually are a little bit more complex than the other cards in the deck. And that's because these are kind of like your like big chunky cards. And I don't mean physically, I mean energetically, they're quite chunky. The major arcana cards really speak to those karmic lessons that are in our lives and our core life themes that are going on. So if you're drawing like a major arcana card, it's not so much like what's going to happen today, but more about what's going on in your life. So let me see if I can let's randomly find something. Okay, so I've got the World card here.
Yeah.
Now the World card, for example, is the last card of the major arcanas. The World is very much about completion and the concept of getting everything to come full circle and then almost getting ready to step through that circle, birthing into the next phase. And so you can imagine how that could fit into your life, where it's not so much like, oh, well, today I'm going to complete my project and I can tick off my to-do list, right? Miss productivity here. But it's more about, well, okay, where am I seeing completion in my life right now? Are there any loose ends? Are there any open loops that I can help bring to completion? And I also that's to give you a flavor of kind of what a theme looks like. But I also want to step back here and just say, this is also how we can make tarot exciting and interesting. Is it's not so much, oh, look, you know, Elizabeth, you're bringing everything to completion. It's more about, well, let's look at your life and let's look at how this theme is playing out.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit more interaction going on with this card when you go, right, where do I need to close some of those open loops, and doing a bit more of a self-reflection process with the card.
What I love about this is the timing. I'm all about synchronicity. So at the time we're recording this, we're in the week right before the last eclipse of the 3 this summer. So the Leo solar eclipse is coming up this coming Saturday. It's Tuesday today. And a lot of the lessons of this are about completion and culmination. And it's literally like tying a bow on some stuff. It's not often, you know, when we talk about the moons, it's about, you know, release. What do you need to let go of? But like letting go is a constant process. But like completion and culmination is like chapter done.
Yeah.
And that's that's like literally a big part of like the transit that we're in right now. So I just thought it was kind of cool that you were like, let me pick a random one, but nothing is random.
That is true. And then also to speak of the archetypes, a lot of people can see, like there's a lot of connection between even like Carl Jung's archetypes and the major arcana cards.
Yeah.
Even I think, does Joseph Campbell, he has archetypes?
Yep.
And I remember reading about those archetypes and going, oh, yeah, there's the Magician, there's the Fool, right? All of these tarot cards. So there is a lot of connection with those different archetypes. And I think if you have an appreciation for, say, Carl Jung's work, you'll find this beautiful connection point with the tarot as well. So, for example, like the Magician card is very much like he's on the tarot card with all of the different tools in front of him. He's got a hand pointing up to the universe, which is his connection to spirit. He's got the other hand pointing down to the earth, which is a grounding effect. And so he's actually taking kind of spirit and earth and bringing it together to then manifest with all of the tools that are in front of him. So that in itself is an archetype, this idea of the manifestor, the creator, the magician, basically, that you can take all these things and turn it into something amazing. And so what can be really neat sometimes with the majors is to actually consciously choose a Major Arcana card that represents the energy you want to manifest in your life. So if I was in a place where I'm really wanting to get things going, I want to turn stuff into action, then I might take the Magician and really connect in with that each day and think, okay, how can I bring this Magician energy into my life even more? Yeah. You could even go as far as like, I love the concept of journaling with tarot. So you might even have a conversation with the Magician, say, right, Magician, what advice have you got for me? Like, what would the Magician tell me to do today so I can manifest these goals that are laid out in front of me?
So you've used the word manifest a couple times, and I'm curious, you're also, again, I know being a person who's productivity driven and like systems and like builds things and gets things done. For you, what's the relationship between manifesting? I think often, and the word has been kind of bastardized into becoming a thing where people think that they can like sit back and not have to do anything. But I know that's not who you are and how you are. So what is, for you, what's the relationship? So like when you say manifest, what is the action and like responsibility involved in that?
Oh, I love it. Okay. So I think I'm just thinking in terms of my own personal process. I usually envision, so I dream and envision, which is come up with the idea of and what it is that I want to create. Then I really feel into it. I start to really feel and sense what it would be like to create that thing that's come into my mind. Yeah. And then I look at all of my resources and I think, how do we get all of this stuff together to make this stuff happen? And equally, like, if there's a situation where I'm like, oh, I don't want this, like, I don't like it, I will then start to envision, like, so what's happened in my mind is I've seen the thing that I don't want, which means I need to create the thing that I do want. Yeah. And then once I know what I do want, then I can actually bring it into being. And yes, it's totally about taking action, but not forced action.
Yes.
It's about being more guided around, I don't know, it's kind of this fluidity because I'm so super proactive. Like I take action, but I'm also in that space of flexibility because different things will come up as you go. So you might go, right, well, I wanted the goal. I really wanted the house with a pool and 4 bedrooms. But as you move through this like journey of finding that place, you might actually find this beautiful home that has 3 bedrooms, a pool and a spa that you really wanted. So there's kind of this flexibility in where you're heading to.
And this is something that has come up in several episodes, and I find this in my own life all the time. Fairly often when we get a vision, it's important to keep that flexibility and also just trust, because in my experience, it's the path to the vision that's going to continue to point you in the direction of like the higher vision. Even now these days for me, I've literally decided that I want to be a stand-up comedian. And I was thinking the other day about how like most comedians will tell you it takes 10 years. And I'm like, well, if we think about so many of the skills and the things I've been practicing in my business, I've already kind of been in training for 7. So maybe I have a 3-year turnaround on what I actually want to see. We'll see, but when I set out to do this, I certainly wasn't thinking, when I'm 34 years old, I'm going to decide I want to be a stand-up comedian, So, but life was still guiding me towards accumulating and practicing the skills and the connections and the courage and the energetic tools as well to be able to like show up to it ready to roll.
And I think also a lot of it has to do with seeing the opportunity as it arises and then going with it.
Yeah.
Because if I think of, say, the evolution of Biddy Tarot, again, I did not start with a business plan that said I will have a team of 18 and, have all these courses. What I did was just little micro experiments all the time, a little action. Okay, how did that feel? Did that feel good and in alignment? Great, I'll do more of that. If it didn't feel in alignment, all right, stop there, move on to something else.
Yes.
So for me, it's a staged evolution in a way of getting towards what it is that you envision. And it's not so much like you don't have to see everything. So sometimes I get frustrated with this idea, but often you can only see a few steps in front of you.
And or even just one.
Yes. And you need to take that next step to see the one that comes after. And in fact, there's one of the Major Arcana cards, it's the Hermit. And the Hermit shows this old guy and he's holding up a lantern and he's in the snowy mountains somewhere. And I always think this hermit, he trusts his own inner wisdom. He's old, he's wise, but he's using his lantern to see whatever the next step is. And he knows that if I just take that next step, I'll see the next one and the next and the next. So I often think that is a good archetype also to work with when you're manifesting, because it's just trust. You don't have to see the whole thing just yet.
Yeah. 100%. So we also said before we started that maybe a good way to kind of demonstrate how it works would be if you gave me a little reading. So I don't even know how that works. So I'm just going to let you tell me how it works.
All right. So I really like having a point of focus.
Okay.
So what's kind of on your mind? What might you want more intuitive information around? Where do you want to dig a little deeper?
Let's go with my stand-up comedy career.
Oh, yeah, neat. Okay, cool.
By the way, you guys, I know everyone, I think, assumes that I'm just this fearless person because my podcast is called Truth Telling and I share a lot of myself with the world. But, this is a vulnerable thing for me in the moment because it's, fresh and new. And it's, the biggest thing I've let myself dream in years. So I'm just putting that out there.
All right, awesome. I'm just thinking what I might do is a simple 3-card reading for you.
Cool.
And I really like the one that goes situation, action, and outcome.
Okay.
So kind of where are you at now? What actions can you take to get towards your goal?
Mm-hmm.
And then what you might experience over the next few months. So let's see what comes up.
So for people listening, not watching, Brigit is shuffling right now. Just giving the play-by-play.
Okay, so I often do email readings because I do not have a poker face.
Right.
I'm always my expressions and so on. Okay, neat. This is interesting. This is super interesting. All right, let's go. So this is situation right now and 7 of Swords reversed. And I often see this card come up when you're feeling imposter syndrome and you're feeling who am I to be this person? Exactly. And given it's in the reversed position, often this is going on internally. So again, it's so interesting just what your comment just before we started.
Yeah.
I think you're putting on a really brave face, but underneath you're oh shit, who am I to do this? Am I fooling myself here?
Yeah. And I'm not hiding that. I don't know who I think I am, but I'm going to go for it.
Yeah. Neat. And I think also, if you have a look at the imagery here, so the guy has got 5 swords in his arms, but he's had to leave 2 behind. So some of it might also be that you might be able to do 80% of it really well, and maybe there's a 20% that you just think, you know what, it's not my genius. I'm just going to leave it behind, and I'm just going to focus on the stuff that I can do really well.
Yeah, that's literally. It's so funny because I went to an open mic last night and I've been going to this one where it's improv where I could just pull something out of a bucket and riff on it, and I'm awesome at that. But when I actually have to write and prepare stuff, that's much harder for me. That's the 20%. But it's pretty crucial. So I'm got some books. I might take some classes. I need to learn that. But last night, I just moved or whatever. I just decided to write down some bullet points, show up, and I just said a prayer, let me say some funny stuff when I get up there. And I was that was literally me doing basically exactly what you just described on that call.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you find yourself being plagued by the inner critic or the inner imposter syndrome, just revert back to the stuff that you do awesomely well.
Yeah.
And that kind of fills your cup of confidence. And then if you want to work on the stuff that's a little bit harder, fine, do that.
Yeah.
But I say, really focus on your genius.
Cool.
Your genius work. Okay, so this is action, and we have the 5 of Swords. And again, do you know what? This is another one kind of leaving stuff behind, because in this card, what's happened is the 2 characters in the card, it's almost like they've had a disagreement, a falling out. And you can see this woman, she's taking the sword, but she's left 4 behind. So again, it's almost like, I don't want to be like a downer, but like cutting your losses in a way, as in figuring out the stuff that's just not your stuff and then moving on. And also not getting caught up in I want to say the emotion, but swords are very much about the intellect and the thoughts. You know how we can cycle on the thoughts of like, as soon as you get one piece of like negative feedback and our brains are just going, oh my gosh, I'm so bad at this, I'm so bad. But you've still got 99 people going, you're so awesome. But you're like, no, but that one person said something really bad.
Yeah. I was just having this conversation. I had a weird interaction with a man the other week, someone who I had met. And this is a man who I know is like very popular and has like women throwing themselves at him all the time. And like, I wasn't interested. And it was like really bothering him that I wasn't interested. And I was like, it's like when your book is on Amazon, you get one negative review and you're harping on the negative review.
I'm very guilty of that. So you would know this well. Cord cutting, very important.
Yeah, got it.
Very important. And I think, what's really interesting that these 2 cards are swords cards, both of them. And to me, again, that really speaks of this is a mental game for you, and it's keeping on top of your thoughts. It's not, it's not the advice of like feel into it. It's not the advice of kind of like make things happen, but it's very much about you've got to focus now on what's going on in your head and how you're bringing that thought and intellect out and communicating that. Actually, swords are also very much about like verbal communication. So it's quite fitting.
Funny. Well, and as well, because one of the reasons why I feel so inspired to go into comedy now is to be able to use my intellect, is to be able to speak about all the things that we talk about here on the podcast and reach people and get people to think differently and see things in a different way through a totally different medium.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it. Okay. So this is the final card for outcome, and it is the 5 of Pentacles reversed. Now, if you have a look at the upright, it's this woman, she's standing out in the cold, and she's got the lights of a church behind her. What I often see this as is help is there for you if you want it and you need it. So, for example, this woman, she is feeling like she's left out in the cold, but if she wanted to, she could go into that church and someone would be there to help her. So I feel that you may, given it's in the reverse position, the reversals are often this internalized feeling that's going on or something that you're keeping quite private to yourself. So I feel that maybe you might be resistant or reluctant to seek the help of others. However, I would strongly recommend being more open to that help and support, because I actually think it will lift you up in bigger ways than you can even imagine.
Yeah. Which is, something always seeking the help and support of others that I'm like, do I really have to? Can't just do it all myself.
Exactly. You don't have to do it alone. And, this card's from our Everyday Tarot deck. It's slightly different to the Rider-Waite Tarot deck, where like that's kind of the most popular deck, in that this time there's only one character. In the Rider-Waite, there's actually 2. So in this case, I think it's really interesting that she's all by herself. You don't have to be all by yourself.
Yeah.
There's help out there. And if you ever feel like, like, oh, it's lonely around here, or I'm all on my own trying to figure this out, just know that you've got help if you need it.
Yeah.
And particularly if you need to get like out of your head with, what's like the inner critic stuff, or if you're ever in a position where you might find that like one person has given you that negative feedback, just know that there's all these people there to support you.
Yeah.
if you like, but it's up to you. You have to walk in that church door and say, yeah, I'm here for help. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love it. Especially, again, just like resonating and timely. The biggest motivation behind my recent move was to come back to a place where I could be around people. I was very isolated where I used to live. So this is cool. And I share, you all know me, I don't mind sharing personal stuff to like, for the sake of like demonstrating something or showing something. So that was super cool. Thank you for doing that. As we start to wrap up here, is there anything else specific to, you know, what people can expect to find in the book if they're curious and they want to check it out?
Yeah, absolutely. So this book has been designed for really like anybody. Not really, not meant to say that, are you?
No.
But it actually is. My world's kind of different because I think a lot of people think tarot is a certain thing, but I think tarot is for everyone, and I think it's a normal thing to do. So the way that I've written the book is such that anyone can pick it up, whether you have used tarot before or you haven't. I really encourage people who are new to cards or a little bit curious or interested to connect with their intuition to check out Everyday Tarot, because the way it's being created is that you don't need this really big detailed understanding of how tarot works.
Yeah.
And it's my mission to make tarot part of the mainstream. I really want this to be an accessible tool for everybody who wants to connect more with their intuition. So highly recommend it for that. If you're a tarot reader and you've been reading for a while, maybe you're getting a little bit bored with doing a Celtic cross every single day, it's a great book for just, again, making tarot part of your everyday and connecting with your intuition more frequently. And also the tarot deck that we've created alongside of the book, it is based on the Rider-Waite. However, it's a much more modern interpretation of the Rider-Waite deck. We've interchanged a lot of the like male characters, so now there's more balance with women and men.
Cool.
One of my favorite cards is the Knight of Swords. We've now got a woman like Athena on her horse, and she's got her sword. She looks awesome.
That's cool.
And yeah, it's a really neat deck. Again, for people who might be new to tarot, it's just nice and simple, or people who love collecting new tarot decks and want to play with something new. Yeah.
Well, Brigit, thank you so much. So your website, it's biddytarot.com. People can find the book on Amazon or anywhere else, any other booksellers, yeah?
Yep, or just go over to everydaytarot.com. You can see a little bit more information about the book and the deck, and
Great.
We've got all the links over to all of the bookstores.
This was super fun, and I also appreciate, we have all these deep conversations on the show. This episode felt a little bit lighter, but also just, I'm a Virgo and a Capricorn rising, moon rather, and I love practical stuff. As much as I love the like woo-woo, let's go off the deep end and get really esoteric, things that are both that could be super practical make my heart absolutely sing. So I hope people listening appreciated that, enjoyed that. And social media-wise, if people want to follow your stuff, where's the best place?
We're super active on Instagram, so at Biddy Tarot, and also on Facebook.
Cool. So thank you all so much. Everyone who's curious, wants to know a little bit more, go check out all those things, and we'll see you later.
Awesome. Thank you.
And unity, that whole concept of unity really does, at its core, it says that folks have to conform to be together.
Right.
And when I'm in solidarity with you, I don't necessarily have to agree with everything you do. Right? But I know we're going the same way, right? Like we're trying to make that same outcome, right? But it is not the sense that you and I have to be you. Like I have to literally fit in to be accepted.
Yeah. Yeah. So the distinction I'm hearing is unity requires conformity. Solidarity does not.
No, from my perspective, it does not require conformity. And solidarity is a way to show up so this unity tries to give you this undivided entity, which we know isn't true and doesn't happen.
Right.
So, and solidarity, I don't have to be you to understand your humanity.
Yes.
I don't have to have your lived experience to know that you deserve health care. I don't have to be a woman in a wheelchair to know that that woman in a wheelchair deserves all of these things simply because she's human.
Yeah.